Kia ora, everyone. This is once again your host, Shailesh from New Zealand World News. And we are, as we always bring people from different political parties being an election year, but also to understand their visions and what are they inspiring and aspiring for our country and our nation. And today, I am really having the pleasure to invite Helen White. She is just not a normal human being like us, but she's a lawyer, barrister, of employment law. But now she has been 30 years living in Mount Albert, which is her constituency that she's going to stand as a candidate for the Labour Party. And I think we have heard a lot of debates of Labour Party, two major parties, Labour Party and National Party in the debates. But what are the visions? Let's hear from the candidates. Let's hear from the people who really are on the ground, who make this whole nation work for everyone. And we probably know, and all the listeners who know, Labour is always all about talking about their policies for everyone and not any one, this section or that group. So it will be very interesting being in the employment law, which deals with all the people day-to-day life of normal. Doesn't matter where they come from, who they are, but resolving the issues is one of the keys. So let's see and get into this the beautiful conversation that I'm going to have today with Helen White. So Helen White, over to you. Tell us something about your vision. Why did you chose this time to stand? And I know you have been in this scene and in this scenario, in this community for the last 30 odd years, which is really helping people. So what changed this time you see, and what's your visions for this time? The election is going to be very, very tight, it seems.
Yes, thank you so much for this opportunity. I have the thing about living in a place and standing in it is it's really, really special.
Yeah.
Because you know your community so well already and you're so entrenched in it. And my children went to school here,
right.
And I've lived here for a very long time, and I've seen it change, and I've seen the kinds of challenges that we face. So it's very much where I think about, what my future is and what it should be in this community and what, what this community needs. And so you take these big global issues and these big national issues,
right,
and you apply them to your own community. And so really amazing thing to be able to do, and you're doing it all the time anyway,
sure.
And part of what you're doing as a resident. So I started my political life, not really in politics at all, but as a lawyer. And I chose the field I chose because it was about people's work and living in a dignified way. I see work as probably the most important building block in people's well-being. And that doesn't mean that obviously you don't have to work to have well-being.
Yeah.
But it's such a great source of power for people.
Absolutely.
And creativity and fun. It can be. It can be all those things. It makes people feel worthwhile often what they do. And so when it goes wrong in an employment relationship, and when perhaps somebody is abusing the power that they've got in the relationship, it can really hurt whole communities.
Yes.
Because everybody's got a partner or a child, and those stresses at work come out at home. And if the most basic things, like you can't feed your family on your wage and you're working really hard, then that's crushing.
Absolutely. Yeah,
that's absolutely crushing. And so I could see in my work over the last 25 years impact of low wages and poor work and bad treatment. And it's something that I found heartbreaking at times. It was an easy job. I had, you can only do so many cases. And I had cases that I lost, that I was glad I lost because it really hurt people. And I had cases I won where I felt like, yes, this is amazing, but often the person involved in the case is still being really hurt.
Yes.
And
Yes.
will make up for it.
Mm.
I remember I had one where I had a man who had been accused of, it's a quite a famous case, and he was accused of sexual abuse of a passenger on a bus.
Right.
You can imagine, for a low-paid worker, what are they supposed to do? The bus company took his wages away for 18 months, and in that time he became bankrupt. And in fact, the allegation was one that was very hard to deal with because it was at an unspecified time and an unspecified place. And by losing his job for 18 months and becoming bankrupt, it impacted on his family.
Sure.
We won that case. We won it every step. But the price that he paid was so high.
So basically, I mean, what I can hear that, winning or losing is always there with any case, but really what impacts and what matters. See, sometimes even after winning, it doesn't really matters, and it doesn't really impact, and it makes a huge impact sometimes, even if we lose or even if we win. And that is the dynamics of these employment relations that we are dealing with. But in your vision, now that we are talking about employment, you talked about the wages, like, very important. So in the last 6 years, we have seen labor has always increased the minimum wage to get the standards up. But also, they have also increased the overall wages of teachers and nurses and all sorts of government public services. What's your view on the current strategy that if they are saying that if national comes, they are going to bring back the 90-day period, which according to you, what's your take on that? And what do you think about the minimum wage? Because that also could be another issue that they can come as a seal that as a stagnant, or they might freeze it and they might not increase it. Do you think what's your vision in the last 30 odd years, what you have seen? Tell us something about that.
That every minimum wage increase, National voted against. So I think we will see a freeze on minimum wages, and minimum wages are the things that affect everyone else's wages.
Of course.
And if you give your bus drivers a wage rise, then other jobs get the same money. So, the same with nurses and teachers. These are important salaries to raise if you want the whole economy to move ahead in terms of wages. And we have a really big gap between rich and poor.
Absolutely.
And it's growing. Yeah.
Sure.
So we're very lucky in the last 6 years we've managed to keep wages ahead of inflation. For the first time, even though we've had a pandemic, that's doing okay. But we have to change some really fundamental things. And so it's like fair pay agreement.
Yes.
We're all about making minimum floors in an industry so that one employer in an industry that wants to pay its wages a decent amount isn't undercut by one that wants to pay them less than that.
Correct.
It really was a push towards a high wage economy. And to see all that go would be so sad. It would mean that the real income of New Zealanders went down. And one thing that I heard the other day, I was giving a debate, and I had the National Party members say that they wanted to get rid of the Reserve Bank Governor's commitment to trying to maximise sustainable employment. And I thought about it overnight and thought, well, what that is really saying is that they want to take away employment and giving people jobs because they want there to be more unemployment. And that will lower incomes because there'll be more demand for the work and the salaries will go down. And so you asked me about the future of this country and the suburbs. For the future's got to be high wage work,
Right.
and it's
Right.
got to be secure work. Now, we've got too many insecure situations, contractors, dependent contractors, in very insecure situations.
Yeah.
And it's pay the bills.
So what do you think, is it justifiable when we are living in a cost of living crisis, when we are living in an inflation scenario? Other side of the coin or other side of the question would be always that, oh, we don't need this increase because we are in a situation that is inflation and that is cost of living is hurting. But then you can't balance. If you don't have money to spend and if you don't have higher wage, then you can't spend in this higher inflation and higher cost. So you can't spend. So what's your take on it?
Like there is this old-fashioned view of trickle-down economics that if we give a whole, if we did the tax breaks that the National Party are talking about, who gets the most money? The people on a lot of money. Somebody on 200,000 is going to get a whole lot more money than somebody on 50,000.
Yeah, absolutely.
Who gets that in a cost of living crisis?
Yeah.
And it's about what are our values? That trickle down economics, that if you give it to people on 200,000, they're more likely to invest it. It's never worked. It doesn't work.
Absolutely, absolutely.
I don't want to sit on Maseratis.
So
I want to sit on cheese.
So definitely you think that, wage, in spite of the situation, as you rightly said before, that in spite of the COVID, we still have maintained the high wage, high minimum wage, and we have still managed it in terms of that. But now what we're seeing is a high cost of living in terms of basic food as well, groceries as well, everything is high. Do you think it will be a good idea also to look into those aspects, why it is so high, and can that go back to the normal that 6 years ago or 3 before pandemic? What was the scenario in those prices?
So the inflation issue is really a hard nut to crack. No one's saying it's easy. And we've had this, kind of huge trauma in this country of a pandemic. And we made sure that people could make ends meet in that time with a wage subsidy, which again was based on a value of let's keep people in work. Yeah. That worked beautifully. That was, nobody's arguing that wasn't a very good use of money. No, exactly. Yeah. But, yes, so that's the first step, is like, what are the things in an environment where things are buffeting around the world? Inflation is a problem all over the world at the moment. Of course. We've got, in that situation where we've got those kinds of inflationary factors, we've got to make sure we're constantly balancing and we're constantly targeting. So you can see that the offerings at this election from Labor are very cautious, and they're not universal dental. Sure. They're dental for the 23-year-olds and then dental to the 29-year-olds a year later. They're very carefully considered to target people that if there's going to be inflation, and while we get it under control, and the Reserve Bank governor is doing that, ironically, with interest rates, that is happening. Yeah. But if we're going to be in this kind of environment, we're using the levers we can as government to make sure that we're easing the pressures. And like for me, one in this area is, I see every day is the transport cost. So the half price transport fares for kids and the free ones for the very young children. For some of our families, they've got 3 or 4 children who are going across Auckland. I go to Auckland Girls as one of my schools, and those families are coming in from South Auckland. The St Paul's boys are coming in often from again travelling a long way. So their families not having those costs of transport, that's a lot of money to a family. That's like $60 or $70 a week. Sure. And the child care for children who are 2, that's again for families with little children who are struggling. That's really helpful. But that goes if Labor does not get in, we won't be able to do that. Instead, there'll be tax cuts given to people who are on 180,000 and more.
So you think? So basically, what you are saying that these are all the social welfare policies that Labor has come up with to help and ease out the cost of living or ease out the inflation at this current time. If that doesn't get continued, even I heard about the school lunches and all those things and the family for tax credit, plus the child care center, two-year-olds, all of that cost, it does help in this current scenario. But if it doesn't get continued, you think that the effect of that would be adverse, will be worse for our country, or what's your take on it?
I think things like we've been trying to move children out of poverty, and that's a hard thing to do. And we've been managing it. We've brought, I think it's 77,000 children out of poverty. It's a lot of children in poverty, and we've got lots more to do. I think the school lunches program, yes, it's about food and that's important, but it's also about the care of a community for these children. It's saying you don't have to feel hungry. We're going to make sure as society, the first thing we do is feed you. And to take that away, it's just so sad.
Yeah, I also was thinking about to talk about being in the legal aspect, the social welfare, the social benefits, that they are on benefits, or they are on this system, social welfare benefits. If those gets cut down, or if those gets reduced to what they are getting now, instead of that, they wanted, to monitor, or they wanted to have the outcome of those people who are getting benefits, and they should not be just giving benefits. That's what the argument was. What's your take on it? Like, what's the percentage? Have they really calculated that who are the ones who are not genuinely or abusing? What is the percentage of abuse and what is the percent of genuine?
I don't think that's based on a calculation. I think it's based on trying to whip up some emotion, because we have really high employment, and we have all these programs that are based on trying to bring people into the workforce. Yeah. But we also have to recognize that if you've got 3 little children, pretty much a full-time job.
Yeah, right? Of course, yeah.
Yeah, and it's a valuable thing if those children are brought up well. And we need to recognize that there are lots of situations out there that aren't. Yeah. We're better off to try and hold some of that judgment back. A lot of situations where people have got disabilities or mental illness. Yeah. It was funny, the other day I was at Point Chefs, and I was outside the supermarket giving out leaflets, and a man was begging on the street. That man had a house, because I know that we're house income, which was nice. He's got somewhere to go, and he said to me, I like this area. I don't like Auckland Central, where you were from. That's where I think yeah. People in there. And I thought, it was lovely that he was engaging with me and to talk about it. So how quickly we forget that those houses I'm proud that in COVID we housed the homeless in places like San Francisco, which is a city with a good value system. They had car parks with just car park spots for each homeless person, so they could isolate while sleeping in the car park.
Yeah, of course. And being a first world nation, we shouldn't be having all that kind of stuff here, in spite of the fact that we have got a good social welfare system in place. And we still find this kind of, but you are right, absolutely right. During COVID, we housed them, everyone was identified and everyone was given their entitlement and their share so that they don't. And as you rightly said, the mental health, we don't know these homeless are because of mental health or because of whatever reasons, we really don't know.
Probably
Mixed, yeah.
Once broken,
Mm,
people have got broken, it's really hard to fix them. And
absolutely.
there's stuff that going on. It's quite complicated, quite often. And that's the work that some organizations do where they do one-on-one with those people.
Yeah.
And turn around people's lives. But part, again, of the solution there is when it's appropriate that we make sure people can work.
Yeah.
And you know, again, people are doing some beautiful work with that. Maybe back into the workforce or into community. And you know, it's just a step-by-step process, and it doesn't happen overnight.
Absolutely, absolutely. I wanted to touch and pick your brain on one of the things that you were also quite involved in dealing was one of the body cop issues of the home when we were talking about the body cop and the apartments and the leaky homes and all sorts of people getting into litigation and legal issues. And rather than living, they were just more compliance and more like finding money to just pay these legal fees to sort their home, which is no fault of those owners, but it's just the way the system was designed, I guess, from 2010 or 2010 regulations or body corp regulations and legislations. What's your take in the current scenario when people are building houses? Are they going to be in that comfort zone, or is there any changes in the law for the existing homeowners?
I got behind what happened there was a private members bill that was based on a report that was like a decade old.
Yes.
So I was one of the people who went to bat to keep that bill, and to, even though it wasn't quite fit for purpose, we changed it a lot and we put in a bill which was better. But I don't think the work's all finished there.
Yeah.
I think what I saw was that places like all over the world, people have got these issues about apartments and how you make that. And I saw some really good systems in Queensland.
Right.
I haven't been to Queensland. I just looked at it and researched it.
Right.
Some submissions on it, and there were all sorts of different ways of doing this. And they talked to the ministry at the time about keeping on working on it and like actually looking at what we've done this time, which is a big improvement, but making sure, checking in with people that it was working and improve if we possibly could.
Right. Right. Your video is gone. I think your video is off. Technical. Yeah. Now it's okay. Yeah, you're back.
Sorry, somebody called me in the middle of it, and my screen appeared. So yes, so I think there's lots to be done in this area, but I think it's also an evolving situation where we have to check in with people, see what's working, make sure they have more than one option. And what Queensland had going for it was that it basically has about 5 or 6 different modules of law, and you can pick them so that you're having one that fits your development. And so people have choice. And so I would love to see some work, and I don't think it has to be I think it can be inclusive of all the parties, because I think a lot of the urban MPs know this is a problem in urban areas that we have to get right. There's some amazing developments. One of the building developers here, Ockham, do really nice apartments and have thought about a lot of this stuff. So I think we should be talking to those people about what the best models are and the safest models. But I also think it's really important we don't throw away our standards. So we make sure that the buildings are built so that they've got really good insulation and they've got really good soundproofing. Because often if you're buying an apartment and you haven't got a lot of money, you'll go for space and actually noise. It will be in a place that might be noisy.
Yes.
So it's really important we make sure the walls are thicker, and we're doing a lot of what they're doing in Europe, which is building right up close, but
Yeah.
well. And we also need green spaces. We need to protect our green spaces so
Correct.
that if you're living in an apartment with children,
Mm.
you can take them down into a recreational space.
Absolutely. So tell me something about these, labor has always been in these three areas predominantly advocates of housing, health, education. These are the three prime
Yes.
advocating, and this is all required. In that space, the way you see today and the way the direction of our country is going, what's your views on that, these three aspects, how is going to pan out come election time or after election time if Labour is not there or if another government is there? Because these are our three basic main
Yes.
things.
So I guess, again, I hate to be fearful, but I am fearful because I remember what happened to the hospital system and
Yeah.
how the hospitals didn't get any maintenance spent on them. So they ended up with black mold and in Middlemore. And
Yes.
we've had to spend a lot of money trying to upgrade those hospitals.
Yeah.
And I know that we need to, I had a situation where when I was a lawyer, I used to do the work for the midwives and some of the other hospital workers.
Right.
And I remember going in to ask for more pay and told, we don't get as much money per patient as the hospital down the road.
Sure.
So Middlemore, where you had the biggest need, was getting less money per patient.
Right.
And that's just wrong. That's absolutely wrong. And I worry that that will happen again, that we will end up in a situation where it matters where you live, what the level of care you get is, and that the rundown in wages and the rundown in the infrastructure will look like it's saving money for a while, but actually it'll be hurting people. Yeah.
That is one of the major aspect. The building, which is always, climatic conditions have changed now in this year. And if you don't maintain, if you don't upgrade the hospitals, the schools, the buildings that matters to us, it's going to be a big problem in the future for the next generation and generations to come.
That's right. And I think about, I've got a school here, Balmoral, where my kids went, and I go and visit all the schools in the area. Yeah. And I went in, and after the floods, they'd had terrible flooding at the bottom of the school, and it had all been remedied. They had people in who had just restored it and improved it. Right. And can you imagine how good that is for the stress on the parents and the teachers that was done? Absolutely. And that's what we have to do. It's the same with things like the roads. Like it's we've got this lovely graph which shows that actually the National Party didn't spend money on roads. And for all the complaining that goes on, the money that the Labour Party's had to throw at roads is partly a consequence of the fact the roads were eroded by the fact nobody had spent any money on them. So I have a house, and I know if I don't fix a piece of the house where it's rotting, it's going to spread. I have to do that. And we have to have infrastructure in this country. We have to have good quality pipes.
Yeah, it's so ironic.
Not the show. Yeah.
It is so ironic that, we didn't have infrastructure investments from both the government for a number of periods. And then when last 6 years, when more investments were done, more money was spent on infrastructure or allocated to do lots of things. And then COVID came and lots of things didn't happen or halfway through, but the investments were already there and all that, which there was not there before. But these investments we're now doing are considered as wasteful or excessive spending, which is very hard to contemplate or justify whether it is really waste or whether it's underinvestment. Those are the things that we have to know. So in terms of this, what's your take on, to all the listeners who are listening, what's your take on these whole aspects of what matters to as a normal, common day-to-day life for a person?
Mm.
If you look at housing, if you look at education, if you look at health services, if you look at, as you said, about the building, the roads, the transport, everything, these are all basic fundamental things.
Yes. I
that we
guess
can-
what I would say is my job feels
Yeah.
like I love my job, but it feels sometimes like I'm an octopus with all these arms going everywhere, because
Yeah.
all these things you mentioned are so important, and they're all fundamental to the health of the octopus, right? We all the legs.
We all,
So
yeah.
it's you know, that you can't do one. You have to have a vision which has all of these things together. And what we have is an opportunity. I heard actually it was Minister Minister Shaw, who's a Greens minister, talking at a conference, and I went to the conference because they had invented a new method of making concrete, and it's going to be a greener method of making concrete, and they're going to take out the carbon. And there's all these pretty amazing things they're doing with concrete, and thinking about how they do it differently, so that when we're building, we're not destroying our planet. And what Minister Shaw said was, wow, there's been this devastating lack of infrastructure built. There's also an opportunity. And the opportunity is that we can build it back in a way that is better for the environment. So even though, yes, we have to spend some money on things like roads and our hospitals, and we have to get our public transport working, we're actually doing it at a time when the development and the knowledge of where we want to go is really strong. You know, so we've got to do it better. So, but that only happens if we have a government that's connected to that vision. Absolutely. Yeah.
So what's your one focus as one person, that if you want to make a difference to something, we need all of these, as we discuss, health, everything we need. But what's your one focus that you would like to see happening if you come back?
I'll answer that in a strange way, to say I've probably got two focuses.
Okay.
Because,
I'll give you that, Levi.
So one is very much based on my career. 25 years of employment law was no accident. So I want to see wages in this country rise for the low and middle income earners. And I have a little bill that came out of the biscuit tin, which is about something called restraints of trade, which is non-competition clauses. And I know that if I get that bill through, our wages for low and middle income earners go up 6% in 5 years. And they go up double the amount for women. And I know that because I know where they've done it in America, that's happened.
Right.
So my focus in that area is bringing up the wages of low and middle income earners. And I have many ways of doing that. That's a good example.
Okay.
So then the other part of that is, I think that this community of Mount Albert hasn't had someone with a lot of time. They've been time poor. And I'm not. This is my community that I've lived in for a long time. So I think I need to be a really, really good constituency MP. I need to be available and listen to people and bring the issues that they've got back as well to central government. So things like, we had the floods here and they affected Mount Albert really quite badly. And we need to make sure that I'm talking to the mayor about that, and making sure that we have the right kind of infrastructure in place and local governments cooperating. You know, the other day I found that one of the streets down in Sandringham, it didn't get stickered. It had terrible floods and everyone moved out, but the council forgot to sticker it.
Wow. Okay.
So being able to connect that with the local councillor and make sure that they don't miss out on the support that they should get, and that their street, more importantly, gets the right drainage.
I think that's a very key point you mentioned, because I think identifying the issues or concerns is the first prime thing of any government so that you can actually act on it. Because I remember 2017, when it was acknowledged that there is a child poverty issue, there is a homeless issue, there is a people living in car, there is, those mental health issues, all these things were identified.
Yes.
Before it wasn't really quite identified, it was just said that, okay, it is all okay. It wasn't really raised to that bar. So you made a good point that, identification is very important. That leads to transparency of any government who comes to identify, to solve the community issues. And now if there is no sticker, then what are you going to solve if there is no sticker?
Yeah. If you don't even know the problem exists, how will you solve it? And so, yeah, that's a really important part of the job. And actually, of course, as an employment lawyer, I kind of did that anyway. I was constantly fixing problems. So I'm quite pragmatic.
But that's the beauty of it, Helen, because I personally feel that we need more and more educated and intelligent, or people who have got qualified by experience or qualified by certificate or graduates, but we need those kind of experiences, real life experiences, who have experienced it to make that decision and transitions, I think. So just on that, when you said that, okay, you want to see the wages up, but the other side of the coin, being a devil's advocate, is the other parties will say, if in this time, if you're raising wages, then where are the businesses going to survive or sustain? So do you think it is quite justifiable, fair to increase the wages and not reduce it so that the benefits go to the businesses? As you rightly said, it was identified, inequality has increased, inequality has increased. And one of the things, and as you said, there are many other ways of raising those wages. But I want to ask particularly, raising wages and justifying to the other side of the coin, that is it justifiable at this time and during this time when there is cost of living?
That's a good question. And what I'd say to you is, because I worked for both sides, right? I worked for
right. That's why I asked you as a lawyer.
It's and it's always important to be realistic about the strain on people and businesses. But see, something like what I was talking about my restraint of trade bill, the research shows that helps small and medium businesses. And they don't know it. They don't know they're being squeezed out by multinationals by that practice. Absolutely. But that's what the research shows. It shows that productivity goes up. And we have a real productivity issue in New Zealand. And so you've always got to think about what's going to fix it while not destroying other things, having unintended consequences. And that's exactly why I want to do the job, because those are the kinds of things that I know. And I look at, there's some work I used to do out at the steel mill. Steel mill pays really well. It's it's got good wages, and but it's carbon hungry, right? You make steel by coal burning furnaces at the moment. And I've been out there, there's these big kettles. It's really amazing to watch them make the steel out of sand. But at the moment, it's not very good for the environment. And so the government took some of the money that it was getting in on carbon taxes, and it put it into the steel mill to change that, so that the jobs that are produced will be now carbon neutral. That will be a world leading plant, because it will be using electricity. And so we will have this amazing opportunity internationally to sell our steel, but also the workers will be being paid lots of money. And I think that's really important, that we're always looking for people to go into work that's really high pay, and that businesses can access things like digital support to transform, and they can there can be innovation and research so that they produce much more, because we've had really low productivity. A low wage economy is not very productive. So we actually need to move the whole thing. And that some of that is about making sure that the jobs that we all rely on are really modern jobs.
Yeah. I think you can talk a lot on economy, I guess. We should probably talk that in the next episode, I believe, because you have got so much to offer in that space. Because this is really important for all the listeners who are listening, that what economy we have now and how what economy we want if come 14th of October. We want an economy which is thriving, economy which is growing, but at the same time, wages growing, businesses having accesses, and these free trade agreements will be a good tool for
Yes.
all of this, I believe, which it has come at the right time. At least 3-4 countries that we did with labor has done, basically. What do you think that also could be a good topic to discuss in our next episode? But for now,
That
I
is a
think
great one to discuss.
I think this will be great topic to discuss about economy, free trade agreements, and the banking and the interest rates and all of that. But that's some other time. Today, let me just wind up here and what's your final take? What is your message to all the listeners come 14th October? My message is always that please go and vote, irrespective of whatever
Yes.
party it is. But
Yes.
what's your final message so that they can look forward to come 14th October if you are there, what they can expect from you in terms of your final message?
What I'd say is, when I consider the way that I should talk to people who are thinking about who they vote for, think who reflects your values. Not whether they've got every single thing right,
Correct.
but
Yeah.
who actually reflects your values. And I'm very confident that I align with the values of the Labour Party, because it's a party that's built on the dignity of work, and it's there for people who haven't got much money. And it doesn't mean that we're anti people having money. We want them to. We want to make sure they can get money. It's a very, very grounded philosophy. We want to make sure people can earn a decent living in this country, and that it's not just a few people at the top doing that. It's very important. So I would love people to vote Labour this election, and I'd love them to vote for me. And what I offer, in addition to that value system and my commitment to those principles over a lifetime, is I offer local. I offer local knowledge and commitment. I have been here since I was 18. I got married here, and I had my children here, and they went to the local schools. And that knowledge is something that means that I hope I can help you if you need help.
Absolutely. Very well said. As you stand for, as Labor Values Standpoint, and as Helen White just now said to us, that what matters to her is the normal family, well equipped and well looked after, well taken care of by any government. And her government, she feels strongly about it, that they will, because she has that experience of her own that she's expressing. So she's also bringing with her expertise, knowledge, and intelligence that she has got, that she could talk and make an impact on your local communities. So thank you so much, Helen, for that.
Thank you.
All the listeners, please make sure that you vote. And as Helen said rightly, what you stand for, what are your values, everything cannot be satisfied, but you need to take those call of yours. Helen has made that call, that what she stands, what are the values, and you can pick 1 or 2 or 3 values, whatever you resonate with. And with Helen, if you resonate, then do that. And if not, then you do whatever you resonate with, but make sure, please vote, and don't discourage yourself by not voting. Exercise your right. And this is the key election message I wanted to give it to all the listeners. With that, I take this opportunity to thank once again Helen to come on this platform, my media channel. And please say something about my media if you want to, and then put the message out for all the listeners for the voting.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure talking to you, and hopefully we'll catch up again.
Likewise, Helen. Yes, goodbye for now, and we will definitely